All right. It's very quiet in here. Susie, are you busily admitting people, or can you do roll call? Okay, we'll wait. Thank you all for your patience. John, we're ready for roll call whenever you're ready.
Okay. Emmett Hopkins.
I'm here on Zoom. I don't know if I'm technically officially here and using my exemption today or not, if that matters, but here.
All right. Alex Goodman. Absent. Dina Allen. Absent. Okay. Joshua Somane. Kenna Lee.
Here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
Deborah Burns is absent. Sunali.
Yes.
Zeno.
Yes.
Ambrosia. Everett is absent. Diana Rich. Absent. And Sandra Maurer.
Here.
So we have a few absents, but we do have a quorum today.
All right. We might be able to approve our meeting plan. Hold on. I think Woody is trying to log in. So I'm going to send him the link. All right. Joshua, do we have action items to review? Okay, perfect. Do we have any comments from the public regarding, sorry, I'll get that sent to Woody. Do we have any comments from the public regarding items not on today's agenda? All right. Magic, do you want to unmute and make a comment?
Pardon me?
Yeah, were you wanting to make a public comment today?
No, I'm going to observe for a while. There's different, I can't find the agenda right now, so I don't know what is on, but there'll be chances to speak on the agenda, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just so you know, you're kind of only new member of the public today. We hold it pretty loosely, so feel free to raise your hand at any point during the meeting. You don't have to wait for me to officially say it's time for public comment, and I'll just let you know if I need you to wait. But usually I'll talk as a group.
Okay, I just want to say the sound is kind of mushy.
Mushy sound.
I don't know what other word.
I'm talking right into my microphone. It sounds like you can hear me. You just sounds mushy.
Yeah, I can hear you, and that whatever you just raised your voice a little, which helped. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just speak up if you're not hearing people.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any statements of conflict of interest today? I can't imagine anyone has a conflict of interest about the schedule, which is our only action item. All right. Are you ready for roll call, John? Oh, we did it. Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. It's just running to get over here. Planning department report. That's the next thing.
Yes.
Thank you. I knew it was John's turn.
Yeah. Thank you. So we do have a few items to report on. First off, the County Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee recruitment closed at the end of October. We did receive 3 different applications for that citizen role on that committee. And we are looking to schedule interviews with council before that person is appointed. So hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have that on a council agenda item to appoint one of those folks that applied. Secondly, SETA had a pop-up event at the farmers market on November 5th for the active transportation plan as part of their data collection process. And They will be doing a few more of those events in the spring and summer of next year as part of their goal. But the city, myself, we'll be holding kind of our own separate sponsored ones to get some more information from the public as far as the Sebastopol specific bike and pedestrian plan update. That will be when we do decide a date and location. We'll make sure that that gets put up on the website as well as put in the newsletter that goes out, so everybody's aware of it and can participate. Also, I did want to let folks know that the city and a few members of the CAC met last week with the new Bayren program person. And they provided some updates on the programs that Bayren is currently running, as well as a few new programs that they're going to be implementing into the new year, so January. I have the flyer that we received as part of that informational meeting that we had last week. I'll put that on the website, and then I can send it out to the group so that everybody's aware of the current programs that Bayren has, and then also their new programs that they're looking at doing. And then lastly, it is that time of year where the Climate Action Committee, as well as other boards and committees, have members where their terms are coming up. So if you need to know if you're one of those folks, reach out to either myself or Zuzi, and we can let you know if you plan on reapplying. We still have your application materials and such. So I think that's it. Unless you
Just
guys
to
have another
clarify,
question.
John, are you saying that all we need to do to reapply is let you know we're reapplying and that you can use our previous application?
So it would have to have the new dates on there. So signature dates and stuff like that. But as far as
Recording in progress.
the information that is already part of the application, if you want to look at it again, we can send that to you. So you would need to submit
We
a
do need to
new
submit a new one.
application. Yeah, but we can send you your old one so you can kind of copy the information over. So to make it as easy as possible for folks.
Thank you.
John, while we're at it, could you just tell us what the timeline is on open applications and filling out the spots?
Yes, I believe those applications should be coming up. They end at December of this year, and then the application process starts, and usually they're open for about 6 weeks. So I believe once the new year starts, January, they'll open up the application process, take in applications, and then after that window closes, then they will be put on a council agenda to do new interviews and then appointments. So I don't know the full timeline, but I would say probably a couple months of, in between.
If I understand you right, you're saying the applications are not open until January, and that the earliest we would hope to have them filled would be mid-February somewhere? Does that sound about right?
I believe so. It could be that they'll open them up at the start of December, and then during that final month, use that to open up the application. I haven't done the application process myself, so I would have to reach out to Carrie to see when the start of that open application starts.
Okay.
If
thank
it's
you.
before, if it's like a month before the terms end, and then hopefully the intermission time isn't very long.
Okay. I think from our perspective, the sooner we get it open and rolling along, the better, so that we
Yeah.
can focus on recruitment. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for those clarifying questions. Anything else from planning? Wow. Okay. So we can move to city council report.
Thank you. So we have big changes at the city. I can't really talk about this yet. I'm really excited about being able to talk about it, but we just have some big changes. Our city manager will be retiring. And so anyway, news to come. The council has really been focused mostly on the budget recently. So myself and Sunali and Magic, we have been working on a rights of nature ordinance for past, 6 months or so. And we had some big help this past week with an attorney who has written up a draft rights of nature ordinance for us for the city of Sebastopol in regards to the Laguna. So I would like to ask that this be put on the agenda for next meeting so we can introduce the process, what we've done, where we're at, and just in general let you know what we're doing. So rights of nature ordinance is in the general plan for the city of Sebastopol, the intention to do that. So in terms of the Zero Waste Board, they are looking at purchasing property in Windsor for a household hazardous waste project. And about the Meacham dump, that has about 18 years remaining, and they are planning on expanding it. There was some discussion about whether they would be trucking garbage out, but they are planning on using the remaining time to plan an expansion for that same site. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. That's very exciting about the ordinance. Okay, so we can go on to our regular agenda unless someone has their hand up that I don't see. So any working group reports for activities that we really don't have anything from working groups to talk about later in the agenda. So we'd love to hear from working groups at this point.
Steve, this is on, right?
Hello?
Now we're good. I'm going to talk a little bit about the funding.
Who's calling, please?
So we originally looked at getting a grant writer, and we got that. And it seems like the committee didn't really get much in the way of benefit to helping push our causes for climate work from the grant writer. So that was a bit disappointing. And we're now at this financial crisis that the city is facing. And quite honestly, it's kind of hard to see where funding money will come from to help our efforts. And if we were to look at other cities that have actually made progress on climate action, there's usually some kind of staff person, part-time at least, helping to push that along. And it's really hard to imagine how far we'll get without having some kind of staff support. We had Phoebe as a Civic Spark Fellow, and she did an incredible job. So we're kind of faced with, where do we find money? And there is money being spent right now from the city. Back when we decided to go with an evergreen account, the city voted to do that. And back then it was, I think, around $43,000 a year that we were spending. Might be less than that because that was before a lot of the streetlights got swapped over to LEDs. I'm not suggesting that we take that money and use it for the climate committee, but I see that as money that's currently being spent, and it is a decision amongst the city writ large of how can we best utilize our existing somewhat meager resources on climate action. And the Civic Spark Fellow was, I think, around 25,000, about 30. Yeah, okay. And we went pretty far with that. We would have to have really well-defined actions that a Civic Spark Fellow would help us with. And I'm not saying take all the money that we need for a Civic Spark Fellow, but there might be an opportunity there for maybe a 1 year or a 2 year portion of that money that we're currently spending. And I'm trying to gauge what kind of interest there might be amongst the committee before doing all the paperwork to say, here's a proposal before the committee, or even approaching the council members to find out if there's any real interest in doing this. I want to first find out. It's evergreen right now. Half of it does go towards solar produced here in the county, which is fantastic. The other half is geothermal power that quite honestly would be produced no matter whether the evergreen program existed or not. So there is trade-offs of if we were to shift some money temporarily towards committee work, the benefit of what we would be doing, if we can convince people to install heat pumps, for instance, or get contractors to convince people to install heat pumps, that's a recurring resiliency where we're getting those savings every year for the life of that equipment, where every year with Evergreen, we re-up for essentially the same greenhouse gas savings by going with the Evergreen versus the Clean Start, which is also it's half renewable, 97% carbon free. The other portion is hydro. So it doesn't have the local component. So there's a political dynamic here that if we temporarily pull back support for Sonoma Clean Power, there may be some pushback against that. If we can come up with worthy ways to spend some of that money, then that might overcome some of that pushback. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm just so enamored with the bold thinking that it takes to make a proposal like that, of really looking at the situation we're in where there is no money. So how can we move money to get maximum impact? Are you wanting us to discuss as a group at this time?
More of a thumbs up, should we consider pursuing this without a lot of discussion?
Can we ask questions of this? Okay. I'm not familiar with the Evergreen or the Clean Start funds. Is this through Sonoma Clean Power that you're
Right.
talking about?
Right.
So Evergreen is through Sonoma Clean Power
It is.
and the Clean Start?
The
Same?
Clean Start is sort of the default choice, and then you up for this higher percent of local renewable power that costs an extra 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay. And then
And we can encourage people to do the Evergreen, like
I
we
see.
do that, and we hope other people, we encourage, maybe we can get more people. We have the highest percentage in the whole county as far as cities and percent of population that's enrolled in Evergreen.
So you're saying that Clean Start is the default and then
Correct.
Evergreen is a step up.
Correct.
So what do you mean by pullback support for Sonoma Clean Power?
Well, it's more of a political thing.
What does it mean?
Well, it means that we were one of the first cities to sign up for having half of our accounts in Evergreen. The water is not covered under Evergreen currently. So we got other cities then eventually followed suit. So most of the cities now participate as part of their municipal services using Evergreen. So pulling back potentially temporarily may have some visibility, and people might wonder, why are we doing that? And we would have to answer that. We'd have to say what our justification is. Trend is towards more solar, more local stuff. Why would you be going against that? So that's what I mean by political.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused as to why you would pull back. What would you gain by pulling back from that?
Well, the point would be that we would have access to some of those funds that are currently being spent on Evergreen, that we could have more local impact through resiliency efforts that the committee decides to spend money on versus we're writing a check to Sonoma Clean Power.
Steve, one thing that I think maybe you have to repeat is how much additional money is being spent for us to be on Evergreen versus the default.
Yeah, back when the city signed up, it was, I believe, $41,000. I don't know what it is now, so that would be one of the research tasks to find out what the current Evergreen increase is.
Well, sounds like a good way to save some money, but I don't think it actually helps with the long-term goals, right?
Um,
Unless you
can we
put it
pause?
into the climate. Is that right?
Can we just pause for
Sure.
just a second? I want to check in with the Zoom people. Can you guys hear now?
No, not really. It actually, the best I could hear was when Steve was sitting in his chair away from the microphones.
Oh.
So it makes me wonder if the sound's even coming through the microphones in front of everybody, or if there's a separate device mic that's picking things up. I don't know.
Okay, thank you
Hmm.
for letting us know in the
Well-
chat. And Magic are you able to see? Are you not able to see? Is that? Can you hear me?
She might have stepped away. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I can see everybody. I just was wondering why I can't be there present on my video so that you guys can see me in living color.
Oh, yeah. I think they're gonna try to fix that.
Okay, great, thank you. The sound, as Emmett said, is still a problem. The speaker at the mic is perfectly clear. So, but Sandy was garbled the last time. Anyway, hope you can fix it. I'll go now.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Steve. I just wanted to make sure everyone could hear
well,
us.
if there are any other
Yeah,
questions?
I'm still tracking this. So
Okay.
I'm looking at the evergreen funds, but I don't think that that's an actual fund category within the city's budget. It's
It's not.
actually, it's a choice the city made to go with that certain evergreen service that Sonoma Clean Power is providing. So it's not going to show up. It just shows up as utility.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
Well, there's a certain number of utility meters. I'm sure we can opt out of a portion of it, or we can say, well, we're switching the whole thing temporarily to the default instead of the extra evergreen. So, Zeno, you had a question?
Yeah. So, so the greenhouse gas readings are very small with these two programs. Like one is 97. So the big difference is local.
Right.
On the other hand, maybe if we stop this program, we cannot really use that fund for the things you'd like to have it used for. So I wonder whether there's another discussion that we could have next session, which is, can we negotiate with Sonoma Clean Power that extra money is invested in locally, that they start doing things that actually are visible to Sebastopolians as a way of the city connecting with the county-wide initiative.
Well, that's what they're doing with the Evergreen program. They're investing that into local renewable.
Yeah,
projects.
but local is not Sebastopol. So I want to have it more visible that it
Yeah.
is locally in Sebastopol.
They have some larger solar projects, and they're closer, I think, to Mendocino than they are anywhere around here. It's part of their plan of how they're going to get solar projects that would feed into Evergreen. And we may be hard pressed to convince them to fund some projects here. I think it's a good idea, but in terms of dollars that we're actually contributing to them, it's probably not going to sway their decisions one way or the other.
But the population would, seeing that, I think, be more supportive of this.
I think most people have no clue.
In this budget period, I think it's important to have that visible.
So go ahead, Lisa.
Well, so it is kind of always amazing to me how few people have even heard of Evergreen. But one thing that about going with the Evergreen program for the city is that it really involves zero staff time. It's just kind of a box you check and it's done. And a program that we could initiate, such as some kind of incentive program for contractors to tell their customers about heat pumps, and to something that's going to be in it for contractors. That's where I see kind of the the most impact at this point of anything we could do with money. But it would take some resources, obviously, to with the various departments. So I think it's a really interesting idea, and I'm interested in looking into it more.
So I think that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Lisa, because that's the question on the table is, do we hate this idea so much that we don't want him to even look into it? Or are we saying like, well, let's discuss more?
Just one more thing. I think it would be extremely disappointing if the city pulled out of Evergreen and then we didn't get to do anything climate-wise with that money. That'd be a big bummer.
Yeah, that's clearly one of the risks. So does anyone think this is something that should not even be pursued to the point of getting the full information about numbers?
How confident are you that if the city switched from the Evergreen to the clean slate, that they would save $43,000?
Without finding out what the numbers are now, that's what it was when we signed up, I believe in 2018 or 2019. So I don't know, rates have gone up, but our usage might have gone down because of the streetlight improvement. I don't know.
That's just something I would want to know is what are the actual real savings?
That's what he's asking is should he look into the savings, or do we just hate it so much that he shouldn't bother? So I think there's interest.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing from the room, and I'm seeing nods. And
I would say it's worth investigating for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Any other, I believe, Emmett, you had a report?
Yeah, thanks. I can just give a little update from Transportation Working Group, which is mainly that we have an updated draft for the Vision Zero resolution that we're hoping to bring to the full group maybe next meeting for consideration and discussion, to then move on to the council. And a couple of weeks ago, I sent it to staff to review, and I haven't heard back yet. So that's just a little question for John and Carrie, if you think you might be able to review that in the next week or so, so that we can address any concerns that you might have. And so, yeah, it's got some more detail about specifics to the city of Sebastopol now, and about specific strategies that the city could take to make the streets safer. And so looking forward to bringing that back. And also we're getting some data on bus ridership in the city, and hoping to do some focus on what we can do to make the buses work better for people's needs in town. And found out so far that I think that we found there are an average of 57 riders on the circulator bus per day. Fun fact. So there's definitely room for getting some more people on the buses. That's all I've got. Thanks.
I have a question for you on the bus data. Do we have any sense what the equity considerations for those riders? Are they riders that have economic vulnerabilities or other social vulnerabilities? Do we know who's using the bus?
I just got it that yesterday and haven't taken a deep look. The main breakdown that we can see, which I haven't even looked at yet, is youth riders and probably veteran riders, and maybe senior riders, and then general public. So that we will be able to get that breakdown, but probably not finer grain than that.
Thank you. This is very exciting. John, did you have something?
Yeah, I can give Emmett an update real quick on the. So we have been reviewing that, Emmett. There's just some formatting things that we have for our normal resolutions and such that we're just going through and finalizing, and then we'll kind of give you our track changes for the the draft resolution. That way we can bring it back to the group.
Sorry, I lost all sound there partway through that. I heard that you're going through formatting and then it went totally quiet.
Yeah, so we're going through the formatting right now. Can you hear me? So it's a little bit different from what you submitted. It's a little bit different from what we normally have. So we're just fixing those things so that they align with other resolutions. And then once we finish that, we'll get that back to the transportation group and then back to the full group for review.
Okay, thanks. Sounds good.
All right, great. Thank you for that update. Any other working groups? Zeno? Oh, yeah.
Like to add a little. So Laurel Chambers is the chair of the Vision Zero Sonoma County Advisory Group. And I thought it would be a good idea to invite her to speak here about the importance of this to the community. So we could invite her for our next session when this comes up as a supportive kind of background. Laurel Chambers.
Yes, Joshua, I'm passing that to you. You're doing the next agenda, correct? Yeah. So he's your man and he's writing it down.
Okay.
Ambrosia, did you have a report?
Yeah, just an update from the Zero Waste Working Group. We have been working on the article for this Possible Times, Zero Waste Heroes, and we have interviewed Danielle at Retrograde because she's such a great zero waster, if you will. So we're working on that. Judy Morgan's taking lead on that one, and hopefully it'll get published soon. There's just a couple more tight ends that we have to work on, and yeah, it's happening.
That's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other working groups have anything to report? This is kind of thrilling to hear
have another
so much
thing.
coming forward. So many projects are moving forward. Zeno, yes.
Yeah, I have two things. So I'm the representative of two with Josh on a advisory board for the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And at our last meeting, there was a Bay Run representative there. And I had just read in the Sebastopol Times and then on the city website that there was some issue with less revenue coming into the city to support water and utility activities because of a reduction in use. So I got a call from Chris Cohn, who is the water leader of this, of Bayron, I believe, to talk this over a bit. And we came to the conclusion that Bayron could do a better job explaining the revenue impact of savings. Right, so if you sell less water, you get less money, but you still have to make the system work. And so this is something that may have come up in this meeting that staff had with Bayran, or it may not have come up, but they intending to be more vigilant in kind of laying out the financial implication of this transition that we're going through, where we try to use less and move from gas to electric.
Thank you. So I'm just want to clarify what I'm hearing is that you're just not just you are reporting to the group that Bayren is planning to shift their messaging to make more explicit the kind of all the financial implications of conserving both water and electricity.
Well, this was about water, but we also are going to see that when we move from gas to electric, there will be still a need to maintain the gas lines, but less and less people are using them. So there will be another issue that is kind of coming into this space of consideration.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. John, did you have anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, not related to this, but Cody did ask, is it possible to take like a minute or two break so he can try to fix the sound issues so the folks on Zoom can hear us?
Yes, please. Let's make it publicly accessible.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
looked into grant stuff before, but really it was hard pressed to find stuff that our city would be eligible for. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so, because something's wrong with the microphone source. So one thing we could tell them, it doesn't help with the participation with them talking, but if they want to hear what's happening, the live stream link is going great. So if they want to observe, that would be the way, and they could jump back over to Zoom. It would be inconvenient, but it might be what has to happen for today while I figure out what's going on here.
Hi, Zoomers, can you hear us at all?
Yes.
Hi. So our lovely technician has informed us that it is not a problem that he can fix in the moment, but that the sound is going very nicely to the YouTube streaming link. So if you want to jump over to that, can somebody put that link in the chat? Thank you. Then you'll be able to hear. And then if you want to speak, you have to come back to Zoom. So that's kind of inconvenient, but that's the best we can do. Now someone's sending me a message. Oh, I'm clear right now. It's because I'm enunciating very clearly right into my microphone. Anyway, thank you all for your patience. And where were we?
Working group report.
Recording in progress.
But Steve, you're standing up there as if you have something to say.
I do, yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
Just two quick report
One
outs.
second, Steve.
Sorry.
Kenna, can you call the meeting back to order?
The meeting is now back in order.
Thank you.
You told me I would need to do that, and I forgot.
And so am I. So
Yeah.
two quick report outs. One is the energy working group. The codes are, there's already getting cities involved in supporting the next go round of the building code changes. So we do get to all electric building codes. We got a lot closer in the last go round. And so Jerry and I have started to discuss a little bit, okay, let's get the city, something that we can get before the city to get their name on supporting that effort for the next code change. I believe it would be 2026, but don't quote me on that. It's amazing how long these things take. They do change them every few years. The next thing is from the metrics working group. We have a process in place where we're documenting metrics. We've documented, I guess, 4 metrics now. The latest addition was from Zeno around electric car in the 95472, the uptick in both numbers of cars and new sales, electric cars and hybrids. And then solar metrics, metrics on storage, metrics on energy consumption for both gas and electricity in our zip code. So as we've been assembling these things, we were going to be coming before you all to present our work, but it ends up that the BayREN or really the RCPA is working on a very similar effort on metrics. They hope to have a dashboard for each of the cities in the county showing how they're doing, incorporating more than just the greenhouse gas inventory report, but other metrics similar to the ones I just described. So our efforts, instead of coming before this committee, will really be to get together with the RCPA folks because it's much more urgent that they're working on this now. So just to give you an update. Thanks.
That's great. It's great to have the regional power of the regional cooperation. So thank you for all of that work. Any other? Yes, say no.
Yeah, this is from the Transportation Working Group. We have been thinking a lot about curbside EV charging. It's very complicated. Very few jurisdictions are moving forward. I think Seattle is, Sacramento is. So we'd like to understand this better, and the person probably who knows most about this in the county is Brett Arthur from Sonoma Clean Power. So we're having a meeting. We're going to have a meeting planned to discuss that with him.
Awesome. Anything else? We should just let all the working groups do their thing, and we don't need another agenda. But we will move on, and I'm going to share a PowerPoint summary of, I think I'm going to, looks like I am. My screen is very confusing right at this moment. Just so you Zoomers know, while I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see your comments. So please send them to Zuzi or John or somebody else who's on a computer. I think that's going to be sending, it's going to look like you're sending it to Carrie, correct? Yeah. So yeah, if you need to send a message, please send it to Carrie. And slideshow right from the start. Okay, so we did the retreat last month, and most of you guys were there, and we really appreciated the participation that we got. But we wanted to do a summary to both kind of read back, say this is what we took from this, and then also let other people know that weren't able to attend that meeting what the results were. So we had thought that maybe it would be a little bit more of a visioning session, and there was some visioning, but I think more we spent some time just really looking at ourselves and what our purpose is, and a little bit less leaning into the steps forward. So we're going to try to build that into upcoming meetings. But we did just do a review of what's working well. And so like on these slides, if you see things that are bold, those were things that had a lot more agreement and consensus about, kind of more votes in those categories. So people felt like there was good engagement and mutual respect in the group, that we were good at incorporating public input, that the meetings were efficient, or at least and on time. The compost days got a lot of props, and then people just doing a lot of research, a lot of follow through. Also, people were happy with staff support, the determination and diversity of the group, some of our process learning, getting stuff done, positive tensions, and public events. And then we wanted to ask, well, what can we change? So there was a couple of categories when we sat back and looked at, what was all this feedback. So one was we could change some things about our, looking at this, like what is our purpose and what methods are we using to reach our purpose? And then others were more specific to like meeting format and content. So in that bigger bucket of purpose and methods, more collaboration with other groups, or using other groups to, try to leverage our work, or letting us be leverage for other groups. There's also an idea of like, do we try to focus in on one or two things, or do we be dispersed in, kind of everybody doing their own ideas? But it would help if we had really tangible goals, and a proactive approach. People would like to see us increase our connectivity with city staff, and increase our involvement with city decision making. Looking at funding and then the kind of associated issue of whether fundraising is possible, and then looking at adaptation strategies as well as mitigation. In terms of meeting format and content, people would like more working group engagement and discussion with the full group of the working group topics. People felt like maybe sometimes the tone was getting in the way of effectiveness, that, we might allow more tension in the meetings, or we might let the meetings go over for a minute. And then just to, asking, like, are the chairs really moving things in the right direction? Could we have more efficiency of reaching those tangible goals with our meeting formats? Could we include more visioning, more of the broad view, instead of like, okay, did you fill out your form correctly? And then people also want more personal connections. So we are definitely, as chairs, meeting and taking these things into advisement, trying to do our best here. And the other things that we could change that were not in those exact buckets was, like, how can we sustain energy of our members through, like, public engagement, bringing in more volunteers, just, not feeling that we have 4 people trying to do all the work. All of you are in the 4. And then, this big issue came up, the more existential question of, should we revert to being a citizen group? Does being part of city government make sense? Is it effective? Are we accomplishing what the citizen group and the council originally envisioned when the citizen group asked the council and the council agreed to form a city attached committee? And questions that came up related to that were staff time used. How much does it cost the city to have this group going? Because we're attached to the city, there is some chance that we are decreasing the diversity that this group could hold, because we have to meet, like, during work hours for many people. Are there ways that we're limited by being part of the group? Is our outreach limited because of issues related to being part of the city, especially like the meeting times and the format? Are these meetings that people want to come to, as opposed to a potluck where everyone can sit and eat together and have a less formal type event? And the group really came to, at the end of the meeting, felt to me, and I believe there was a general consensus, that staying a city committee for now makes the most sense, at least for another year, and then reevaluate. The pros of staying part of the committee were amplification of messaging, access to policy that had a little question mark next to it, because sometimes there's a sense that maybe we don't have as much access as we'd like to have. It gives us credibility. It gives us access to staff. We've now learned a lot of the city processes, and so we may just now be in a position for that learning to be paying off. And we do have an official status. And then some of the cons were just the meeting requirements that I mentioned earlier, the Brown Act. We get confused. Are we allowed to talk about this right now? Things have slow timelines, and then we have limited staff time. There's limited integration, like in the upstream part of talking to the city. And then we have no funds, and we have totally no idea if we can find funds from outside, because we're part of the city. So it gets really confusing. And we also sent a survey after the meeting of, like, just, okay, how long should the committee meet? How often should we meet? And you can see from this graph that the winner was, and only 9 people answered, but that's enough that hopefully this is a close to representative sample. A couple of people still wanted to meet monthly. We had a vote for quarterly. What happened to my screen sharing? Sorry, I'll bring it back. But overall, we're clumped in the middle of meeting every 2 months for 2 to 2.5 hours. So I think we are going to move forward with trying every 2 months for the next year, pending a vote on that and later in this meeting. And those idea of collaboration, that we really needed to increase our collaboration. So we asked in the survey, who should we be working with? And, the biggest consensus on that was the carbon conversations done by Rahus. I don't know how to pronounce them. But that was something that we should be working more closely with and in a kind of official way. And then also with Bike Sebastopol, the Bike Coalition, I wasn't sure if those are two different things, but that biking groups. And then the things in the left-hand column got were suggested more than once. Each of those, like Building Decarbonization Coalition, Public Library Schools, Grange, Local Service Clubs, and the Time Bank. So those are things that we may want to look at over the next year of how could we integrate better with those. And then all of these other groups were also mentioned. So, and an interesting quote from that section was that the CAC needs to be reimagined in order to leverage with these other groups. So I think it's something for us to think about and that we are actively thinking about as chairs moving forward. How do we best partner with these other entities to make the work more efficient and more fun? Then we asked about volunteer engagement, and I'm sorry, somehow I meant to make this font bigger and I seem not to have. So I'll go a little bit slow. The volunteer engagement, how can we increase that? And the answers came back fitting into these different categories of coordination, inspiration, awareness, and capacity. So coordination got the kind of the most input, like we need a coordinator, get a coordinator, pull in people to work on specific projects, assign a mentor, communicate our projects better, have clear asks about volunteer jobs, have someone who checks back with the volunteers, and then partnering with local organizations on specific projects, like strengthening these connections. So this idea of a volunteer coordinator seemed like the biggest bang for the buck, as it were, knowing that there are no bucks, of something that we could move forward with if we find someone who had the capacity to step into that, which again goes down to the last point, capacity, is that people also said, it requires us to be more engaged to bring in more people, and they're not sure if there's bandwidth or that we don't have the capacity, like within this group to have that volunteer coordinator role filled. But it's, again, something for us to think about if we're trying to maximize our impact going forward and expand our reach and expand our capacity as thinking about making that investment. And then I think inspiration and awareness go together, just letting people know that we're there, such as having a table at the farmers market or other community events, establishing an email database so that we're getting the word out about what we're doing, and then providing that inspiration. So if we're interesting, if we're doing exciting projects, and people will want to join us, and when we have our work plans and we have goals and expectations, that helps organize and motivate and get people excited about moving forward. Other comments that we had, kind of like, is there anything else you want to say? The biggest entry point in that one was, let's meet every other month. And that would create more space for the working groups to do some work. And then other ideas were just rethink what's expected of the members. Question, what happened to that grant writer? Reimagine how the CAC and others can interface with the city regarding the climate-related projects. And then just a little bit of kudos. We got several thank yous, but I just liked this one. Thanks for all the great work, because I think that really sums up a lot of the energy that I feel from this members is I'll try to show up more in 24, because I think people's intention is so good, and we all are trying to do that. So thank you guys for your intention and for your showing up.
Sounds like a slogan.
Yeah.
More in 24.
More in 24. So, yeah.
Kenna, that was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so just summarizing all of that, like, what did we learn from the meeting? What did we learn from the survey? It kind of comes down to three big ideas of what we want as a group. And we want increased effectiveness of influence in with what's happening on a daily basis, and having that small group to strategize of like, okay, how can we move things forward? So we are reinstating the steering committee. And then we are redesigning the meeting cadence pending approval by the group today to meet every other month and create more time for working groups. We are reordering our agendas so that the working group reports always come first, so that we are giving more time for those discussions and not running out of time for working group reports. And then we plan to do a work plan revision in early 2024 that hopefully will leverage existing citizen groups for more outreach and education and streamline our goals and plans towards tangible goals that excite the current membership of the group as it reconstitutes in the new year. And then we'll reassess the committee status in 1 year. So if there are other elements to our bike trail map forward that you guys would like to suggest, please do. It felt really helpful to take all that input and live with it for a month, and really think about it and see, if we can't increase our capacity in some ways, where can we shift things to get us closer to our goals? So thank you guys so much for participating in that meeting and for the ongoing feedback that you're going to continue providing to keep us moving in the right direction. So that is the end. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Sandy.
Thank you for that report. Could we have a copy of it? I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, because I made it this morning at 5:30.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, I can send that to Zuzi and she can send out. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great to hear it all kind of in nuggets like that. And I think they're great goals, and hopefully we can rise to the occasion.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
I just want to thank you. That was really thorough, and I'm sure that took a lot to put together, and it was so well presented. And appreciate you guys initiating having that steering committee again to help guide us. That sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for the encouragement also.
Zeno, you want?
Yeah, this your presentation collapsed some of the other agenda items, like meeting plan.
Well, the meeting plan we need to vote on to change our meeting plan.
Local collaboration.
So those things we wanted to create some room for discussion of if people wanted to discuss.
Okay, because I have something about council engagement. Can I say that now, or is that something we want to?
I think it's fine to say now.
Okay, so I think I mentioned this before, that the most important and the most financially active, engaged agency in the county is the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And Sebastopol and other jurisdictions, the county, all have a representative on the board of directors of this authority. It used to be Sarah Gurney, who was also a member of this committee, and we would hear a little bit more about what was going on in the Regional Climate Protection Authority. Right now, the mayor is the member on that board of directors. And so I think it would be helpful if there was better feedback between the mayor and being the representative and this group, so that we can better inform what is on the horizon, but also give input in what we think should happen.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, we've been trying to strategize about how we can have more direct communication, but I believe Joshua's going to, do you want to say anything about your role? Joshua's attending meetings as well, and Zeno is, so yeah.
Well, so is Zeno, but the citizen committee meetings are just quarterly and are operating at, I would say, a lower level overall. It's kind of a back and forth check-in, whereas the board of directors meetings happen more often, I think are operating at a higher level. So the two are not interchangeable, is what I would suggest.
So yeah, I think we can definitely reach out to the mayor and ask for, I don't know what to ask for. This is probably something that we'll bring to our steering committee to strategize about.
Yeah, we could ask her to discuss this issue that we feel a need for more being connected with them. How can we solve that?
Yeah, it's good to bring it up. Thank you. Steve? Oh, wait. Sandy, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, committee assignments are going to change. I believe it's in January for all these different positions. So, and we'll have a new mayor. And so it's possible that things could change.
Oh, great.
Oh, well, things will change, I should say. Just not sure in what direction.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Well, very good job, Kenna, this for 5:30 in the morning, especially. My goodness. I just wanted to give some feedback. Sometimes we get the impression like we aren't able to really do what we want to do, but I think the impression outside of our group, like when we met with the Bayron folks this last week and our CPA, they started the conversation by, wow, Sebastopol has done so much and is doing so much. So sometimes we can get kind of down on ourselves. So it's good to hear that perspective from outside the group. And then in regards to some of the things that are on there, I would hope that we'd have a little more collaboration with some of the decision-making bodies like the Planning Commission, especially when it comes to the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We don't want to duplicate efforts where we have outside consultants come in and present both to the Planning Commission and then present to us. There might be some opportunities to have some joint meetings. I know that might be a Brown issue, but this is coming to a head in the next few months, and we need to figure out a way to work together.
Anyone else want to comment before we move on to official discussion of our meeting cadence? So seeing no hands, let's move to the meeting plan. So as you saw or heard in my presentation, most people that answered the survey said they wanted to meet every other month for 2 hours. So does anyone want to discuss that at all before we ask for a motion? Yeah.
Just to say, from a facilitation standpoint, if we're meeting every 2 months, it may sometimes be a little harder to get everything done effectively, especially if folks want to discuss things along the way. So a corollary to that would be we might ask a little more flexibility in running over now and then, depending on the agenda. Hopefully not more than half an hour or something, like we all want to get home to dinner and stuff. But I would just suggest the understanding that if we're going from 2 hours once a month to 2 hours every 2 months, we might need a little more wiggle room in there. Just that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go up to the podium.
It's intimidating up here. Not that I feel like I'm that well positioned to speak on this because I haven't made a lot of meetings the last couple months, but it feels like once a month, or if we decide to do it 6 times a year, maybe we just make it 2.5 or 3 hours just to account for that if we get out early. Maybe that's just because I feel I schedule my time around meeting end dates and stuff. So, but I hear you. I think it's good to have that feedback just in case. So I still like meeting every month. And I also feel like with the holidays, we could maybe have 10 meetings, or, maybe we take one off in December and one off in July, or I don't know, whenever people travel. I don't want to, there's special holiday times people go, that just to break it up a little bit and try to make most of them. I think also too, like I'm sometimes out of town, or I have a lot of people have other stuff going on, so most of us can probably make 8 or 9 or 10, so if we're, or there, check. Sorry, it sounds quieter. If we can make most of the meetings, but we still have 12. I feel like we're getting more done, but maybe that's not as efficient use of the group's time. So just my thinking out loud there. So open to what the group decides, but just wanted to put my thoughts in.
Yeah, well, it's definitely up for discussion. So, like our survey result was based on a limited number, not all of whom are official members. So, and staff, do you have anything to say about this?
I don't think so. I think your decision on whether it's once a month or once every other month is up to the group. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a staff person here, regardless of how many times a month you guys are, or how many times a year you guys are meeting. Ultimately, I think once every other month might free up some staff time, because I know there's, there is two of us here once a month. It is what it is, but that could, free up on the off months, maybe more engagement with staff on your projects could be introduced as a fill-in for not having a meeting that month.
It also occurred to us when we were discussing this, Joshua and I, that not having the monthly staff report, like one of the sometime frustrations is feeling like we don't know what's going on until later in the city, and that not getting the monthly staff report. So we wanted to inquire if it would still be possible to get a monthly staff report. Like, could an email go out of like, here's what's going on? Is that legal? Could it go on the website and then come to us?
Yeah, I mean, we have, so some of the stuff that we do update, like development projects and stuff like that, are already on the city's website. But we can definitely give you those links so you can go directly to them, as opposed to trying to navigate the website to find those. Some of the other updates that we give, like, the check-in meetings with SCTA or any of those other groups, I think that we could send out some sort of memo to the group on a more regular basis.
I don't know whether Alex or Sonali was first. Alex was first.
I'm just trying to clarify, because the staff reports that we did have were like when we had a council member giving the staff reports, or was Carrie?
We have a staff report every time, like when John talks or Carrie talks. That's our staff report. Oh, sorry, planning department report. Yes,
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
So what's the stat? What's the difference with that?
Sorry, I'm using imprecise language. Is there a difference between a staff report and a planning report?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the planning
Sorry.
department report would be what's going on in the planning department. The staff report would be related to the particular item. So if you guys were,
I apologize for my
discussing.
imprecise language. What I meant was planning report, planning department report, like the updates that we get in the meetings.
Yeah. So what I just want to clarify, you're saying is maybe we can get that if we're not meeting every month, the months that we're not meeting, we still get that report via email. So I'd like to request that John set up a YouTube channel and do like a video readout. But yeah, so that's helpful. I have a hard time reading all the reports, but
that would take care of the Brown Act stuff, because it would be publicly available.
Yeah, I'll make an effort to
in
read those.
In my spare time, I'll get right on that.
Thank you.
I mean,
but
bullet points and links sounds great. Like if that,
but in the same vein,
SCIC, check out this, and this.
In the same vein, also from the city council side, we get a report from them too that we won't be getting because if we're meeting half the time. So I'm guessing we'll get that too, or
that is correct. We can request our city council members do that.
Just like their notes, or is there an official agenda?
I feel like it's a little different for the city council because it's all online. You can watch every meeting.
That's true.
And you can just find everything out for yourself. To ask them to go ahead and summarize for us so we don't have to watch the meeting. I don't know. It seems
I'm just trying to clarify. I'm just trying to figure out how the pros and cons so we make sure we stay updated, because I feel like we're already not, I don't feel like, at least from we're not in the loop enough. Like I feel like we could, and so like reducing meetings and getting less updates may make it worse, not better. So I'm just trying to figure out ways we can update, keep ourselves up to date without the meeting. Is there a way we can do that?
Sandy, do you still send out an email after every meeting?
I send out both an alert and a recap of the meeting, but what you won't see in there is like information on a zero waste meeting or, things that are not meeting related specifically.
Gotcha.
And I'm happy to add anybody's email address to my list if you'd like.
Sandy sends a recap of every city council meeting. It's really great.
It is great. It's really helpful.
You just have to
You
sign
can
up
just
on her
just
email.
let me know your email address that you want me to send it to, so you can tell me afterwards.
I was wondering with those city staff hours, if those could be like set aside and allocated to the climate committee so we could access them. No, not possible. Okay. Because for something like outreach that we want to, like in seeking board members, other than putting it on the city website, that was just a general question that I had, is like, how are we really getting out there and doing it? And is that something that we could ask city to do if we gave a list of like Creighton Day Labor Center or something like that?
I think there's some stuff that we can do. I mean, obviously it depends on what our workload is, but as far as like setting time aside, I think if you were to work with us, maybe schedule a meeting or something like that, like a couple weeks in advance, that way we can prioritize our time that way. That could be a possibility, but I think just setting a few hours aside each day or whatever the setup is, I don't think that would be possible, but doing maybe like a bi-weekly check-in or something like that, or whatever the case may be. And then, yes, if you do have additional things that you'd like for us to get on the website or other things like that, we can definitely get them posted on there.
It wasn't to get it on the website. It was like to really get out and do some outreach for the positions that are open beyond just the website.
So other than the website and kind of the newsletter and stuff like that, we don't have in the Facebook feed and stuff like that our outside folks handle. I don't think there's a whole lot of other outreach that.
I know that Joshua really is engaged in this topic and we want to talk about it, but I think we want to decide on our meeting cadence.
Great. And
Yeah.
so with the meeting cadence, I just wanted to add respectfully to what you suggested, Alex, of, you want an allocated time and not to run over it. Could we just budget 2.5 hours, but plan the meetings for 2 hours? And so we, what do you call it?
I want to check in with staff about what time do we have to give the room back?
5:30.
Okay. Yes, Sandy. Wait, hold on. There were people over here. Sorry. I see better out of my left eye. So I don't know whose hand was up.
Just to follow up a little further on that idea of the staff reports and the city council reports, to my mind, in these meetings and in general, we're not looking for everything the planning department has been up to. We don't want to hear about everything the city council has been up to. It's sort of like, hey, climate folks, you might be interested in this, this, and this. And if there's doubt, go ahead and toss it in. So my hope is that would be a moderate ask for our representatives on the committee from the planning department and from the city council. I hope it would take less time than actually coming to a meeting. And again, it's just sort of a proactive, and if it's a bullet point and a link, I'm not going to write this up because you can read it here on the website, but you might want to check it out. I suggest that might be a reasonable, effective option that wouldn't be extra work. And also just to say, we might also hold forth the option of every now and then scheduling a special meeting, which is to say, if there's a lot of stuff up, we'll say, hey, can we do an extra in between monthly meeting rather than waiting 2 months for the next one? So if we anticipate a little flexibility, hopefully we can still get just as much done.
Ambrosia, and then Sandy, and then Zaino.
Kind of going back to what Alex was saying about updates, maybe with that extra time, maybe jumping on to a city council meeting maybe actively participating in it, would suffice, coming every 2 months. I know that I attend every city council meeting, so it does keep you very informed. But yeah, like Sandy and John were saying, adding all that extra work is hard for staff to do.
I have mixed feelings about the idea of moving from first it was every other week or biweekly, and then it's once a month, and now it's moving to every other month. So I have mixed feelings about that. I think as the meetings are more spread out, there's, the timeliness is getting potentially lost there. And so I was thinking about, the senior center, they have a board meeting quarterly. But they have a director and staff, and then they have a quarterly board meeting. They seem to be doing fine. You look at Zero Waste, they meet every month, but periodically they'll cancel their meetings. So they have scheduled meetings, and then I think they've canceled 3 already this year. So I don't know. I'm not sure I can even articulate why it doesn't seem like the right move to make. It's kind of on a gut feeling. It just seems like there could be missed opportunities, and spacing it out. It's almost like possibly like at the workshop, a lot of people expressed this sort of lack of juice for the work, and you space it out. It could even increase that, not really increase the motivation to do it, but it's like the inertia is just spread out farther. So that concerns me. Yeah.
Sandra, I just wanted to say that part of our reflection on this is the sense that, in fact, a lot of the work and the juice is happening in the working groups, and that the purpose of this whole committee meeting has more become to discuss and approve projects that are coming forth from the working groups, and to check in with the whole. There is the presumption that working groups would not be meeting less frequently, that the steering committee would also be meeting more regularly than the committee as a whole. And so that essentially it's difficult to gather a dozen people, and we're only doing certain things with those dozen people. When we can have up to 6 people on the side projects moving right along and just checking in for formal consensus and approval periodically is the idea.
Zano's next, and then we're going to take a comment from Magic after Zano.
Yeah, so I'd like to second what Sandy said. The Transportation Working Group meets twice a month outside this meeting, one the day before. And we talk about the agenda of this meeting and what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. And the other in like 2 weeks before, which is more, what do we want to move on the agenda for next time? So, but I'm really concerned if we start meeting less, that the dynamic is negatively impacted. And one way to see that could be if you look at what we have accomplished. Could we have done that with a meeting every other month? So, for example, the energy survey. I mean, the Vision Zero draft. I think both of them depended on getting feedback and going back. And if we get feedback and have to come back 2 months later, I feel that the dynamic within the working group is affected. So I would not be in favor of meeting less, but I would be more in favor of more transparency with the working groups. When are they meeting? What is going on? So they can become more public facing and attracting more volunteers.
Magic, and then Lefty, and then Alex.
Hi, everybody. So I would agree with what Sandy was saying, that it feels, in fact, it feels sad to me that you would meet less at this crucial time. Look, I know everybody's burned out. We're tired. The world is exhausting right now. But this is an important focus that has the positive aspect of keep directing us towards the world we want, that's why, years ago I started talking about the rights of nature, and after years of talking about it, it's now in the general plan, basically our constitution. And so I feel like you need to do something that moves you out into the city and other people, and brings more energy in rather than dissipating. I mean, I've been in hundreds of activist groups over the year, and you're meeting 2 months. It's not an activist group anymore. It's a way of quietly, of quieting down. So, but I understand the feeling in the room is you guys want to meet less. So I respect that. If that's the energy, you guys have done a lot. I just feel like I'd like to just, I hope you guys could know what you're doing, even in small ways. The compost thing, people did love it. It was like they ran out every time. Those are simple acts that change the feeling of community. That's all. I really respect what you guys are doing, and I just hope that maybe you'd infuse the new year with the new energy and take it out into the city more. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonali?
Yes. The 3 things that you highlighted in your presentation, can you bring that up? Because one of them was having a clearer target and focus as a group. And so I feel that if we're meeting during our times to discuss what our action plans are, then we do have more energy and time outside of these big meetings. Because I think that was one of the things that came out from our greater discussion, was that we feel bogged down in the technicalities of this and want to get into the meat of things more. So I forget what those 3. Right there. Yeah, so more clear sense of progress toward meaningful goals, increased effectiveness at influencing policies, better connectivity with other groups. So yeah, I felt like we were going to have more of a target and clear goals so we could go out and spend our time and energy making things happen. Alex, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate a point that I heard that I think resonated a lot with me. We're not, from the opinions that I've heard, by moving the meetings to 6 times a year instead of 12. What we're saying yes to working more within our working groups, where I do agree. I think generally, as a fact, people are more productive working in smaller groups, working on specific projects that help climate or whatever you're working on, as opposed to meeting in a larger group, obviously hearing a lot of opinions. We all like to talk. I'm definitely one of those people that wants to share my opinion, so guilty. But I think their value, and I think we're saying no to meeting 12 times a year, moving to 6, but we're saying yes to spending that time more productively with working groups. And I think what I heard that was important is we want to make sure we're aligned on the paths that each working group is taking, or that we feel focused and we're goal oriented on what we're working on, so that we can make that time productive that we are spending that. I think that's kind of the summary that I felt and feels really good after I'm like putting in that trajectory.
I just want to re-summarize: meeting less, doing more in 24.
Yeah, so I'm just hearing a very divided room here. And so I'm going to bring an idea forward that you guys can totally throw over my head, as my ex-mother-in-law would have said, which is, what if we just, instead of voting to change the meeting cadence or to keep the meeting cadence, what if we just decide to cancel like every other meeting for next spring and see if we like it that way? Right? Like we cancel February and April, and then in May say, okay, yeah, that was awesome. We spent more time in our groups, or, oh gosh, we feel like we lost momentum. There's an idea. And I don't know who was next. Lisa or Phil, but I'll let you fight it out.
I just feel like throwing out another wild curveball. First off, I'm really excited about helping the environment out. I'm kind of waiting in the faster cadence, like let's get together more. And then plus, I would feel like lonely and left out of all your other groups. Like I'm in transportation, I love art, and I absolutely need composting. And I would never know about all this energy stuff every single time that I come up and learn something new about what they're doing and the metrics and everything like that. So I really feel like monthly is great for me. I'll make time for it, you know what I'm saying? But what I was gonna suggest, the wild curveball, is actually maybe every other meeting can be different. Like maybe this format for one meeting, but then the following month is a slightly different type format where it's more collaborative and kind of more of a different type of meeting.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, Phil. It seems like part of what I was hearing from the group is that this particular format with the microphones and the technical stuff and having 2 city employees who, and well, 3 really, all on the clock. Maybe we don't need all that, but maybe we can just meet at a coffee shop or, in a more informal way, possibly.
I think that's part of why the working groups are this format in which we can have those more informal meetings. But the steering committee is trying to address this. And I believe Diana has some questions out to the city manager about how we could change, like where is our flexibility to make meetings more like our special meeting where we got to sit in a circle and have snacks together, or that kind of, I know it seems silly, but it just does affect how you feel. Just Alex standing up and saying, this feels intimidating, like it just does. And so, so we're exploring how we can adjust, or if and how we could adjust the format to just make the meetings feel better. And I think we're also very open to how suggestions on how kind of alternating agenda that would feel more productive or better, like how do we want to hold that every other meeting, or we're open to any of those ideas. So
it does seem like we're all very aware of the city's budget issues right now. It's pretty dire, and having 3 paid staff, it's a lot, so yeah.
So is the steering committee in agreement with the Brown Act?
Yes, because there's just 4 of us.
Because like the agenda setting committee of the city meets in public, so there seems to be a need for openness here. I feel there's a bit of a friction here with being
It's like a working group. It's like a process. It's a working group about the process of the committee. So yeah.
It could be considered like an ad hoc committee, which the city has.
Okay. I would love to hear anyone's motion. Or we could just stay with what we're doing. Go ahead, Joshua.
I would like to give it a try, just see how it goes, throw this up for a vote. I propose that we move towards meeting of the full committee every other month during the coming year, understanding that the caveats there would be we would hope for informational reports more frequently than every other month, that now and then we might schedule an extra meeting if things are feeling urgent, and that now and then my meetings might go a little bit longer than they do now. That's
Can I add to that we have a visioning also before we switch? Like a directive?
She's proposing an amendment to your motion. Don't I sound so official? That before we start the new cadence, we have a visioning session for setting up the new work plans.
Could be after, but just that we have that in line, that like that's at the forefront
That we commit to that as part of our
soon.
plan. Do we have a second for this motion?
I'll second that motion.
How does it work if you want to do something, say something a little different? How does that work?
I
don't
think,
know.
please someone explain this. I think you vote against it and then you
Oh.
make a different motion.
Oh, gee.
But someone can
Correct.
illuminate me.
So if you wanted to change it, the motion would have to fail, which would not be a consensus vote. And then somebody would put a new motion unless,
So there's no way we could have like option A, B, or C?
No.
Okay.
But we
Excuse
can.
me.
I mean, that's just the process for doing it.
I
Wait,
would
go ahead, Sandy.
challenge that idea because the last council meeting, the mayor made a motion and then she said, if I didn't like it, I could make my own motion. So, and her motion was still, had gotten a second. And so I'm not sure about the
It got a
rules around
second,
making
or
motions.
it hadn't gotten a second?
It did get a second. And then she said, well,